Hello and welcome. This is Saad Usman. Today I have now brought to you another video on vlookup. This is the second video of the vlookup series, and in this video I'm going to cover some of the other advanced examples of vlookup. In this case we are going to apply vlookup on an Excel table. This is a range of cell in which we have a certain values. First of all, we are going to format it as an Excel table, and then we are going to apply vlookup on this. To convert into an Excel table, we have certain methods. First of all, we can use a home tab, select format as table, and we can select any formatting, and it will just convert your Excel range into an Excel table. First of all, the Excel will confirm the whereabouts of the range and whether the table has headers or not. Second way is to use the insert menu, insert, and in insert you can select this table. It will again ask the same question. Suppose if we hit OK, we convert this range of cell into an Excel table. And whenever you select an Excel, you create an Excel table, the Excel very smartly, intelligently gives you the table tools. If you click out of the table tools are gone. If you click on the table, the table tools appear. So in the design tab of the table tools, we are going to give a name to this table. We'll call it, let's say, student data, and by student data we have given a name to this entire table. Now we are going to apply the vlookup formula, and we are going to find out the marks of our student Wasim Akram. So we say vlookup and vlookup Wasim Akram, and we are going to refer to our Excel table. In our Excel table, we're going to refer to our Excel table. Excel table is here. We remember that the name is student data. So we select student data, press tab, and then in student data we are looking up the column index number is 2. So we can either manually put 2 here and do an exact match. We can answer 84, or we can do a match in addition to vlookup to get the column index number in this. So we go for vlookup A16 student data tab, and then I'm going to find out my column index number using a match function. Match B14. I'm going to log the row, and I'm going to refer or look up this and the headers of my table. So you can see the table name first appears, and then the headers with the hash. And then in this case I want to see an exact match. Match will give me the index number of the subject that I've chosen. It's maths, and the column index number is 2. And finally we are going to use an exact match. So press 0 for that. If I copy it to the right, in the first case I have to change it manually, 3, 4, and 5, but in this case I have it all figured out automatically. The index number is automatically calculated based on the match formula. So in vlookup, this is not much of a difference if the lookup table is in the form of an Excel table. The only important thing is to note that in some cases, whenever you want to refer to any column of the table, you will have to first specify the table name and then the column. In this case, we are specifying the headers, so we have first specified the table name and then the headers of the table. In the next example, we have 2 tables, and we are going to take this example in turn. First of all, for example, we have a student name. In this case, you can see that there is a trailing space in the name of the student Imran Khan. If I apply a vlookup formula directly on this cell A11, and I want to refer to this table, log it up, and suppose I want to use match as well, match, and I want to use match here. And I use false for exact match. I still get an error value. The error value is coming up basically because the the lookup name has a trailing space in this. If I remove this trailing space, the answer is right. But what if we have trailing or leading spaces or spaces in the middle of the text in the lookup names? So the answer will always return an error. So in this case, we are going to use a trim function in addition to vlookup to handle this problem. In this case, we have to trim the name, the lookup name in the student name column. So what we are going to do is, first of all, let's see what the trim does. So first of all, let me copy this down and show you the trim is there is a trailing space at the end of the name, and I'm going to apply the trim function on this text. The trim function basically removes all spaces from the text string. So just simple trim and the rest for the text involved. You can see Imran Khan is there, but we cannot go and check right now whether there is any spaces in this or not. But if we use a len function, we'll get the number of characters that are there in this text. So if there are 11 here, and in this case there are 10. See, so there are one character less in this trim function because of the leading and the trailing space is no more there. So we are going to apply this trim function over here, and in the lookup value of A11, I'm going to first trim it using the trim function, and then I will look it up in the lookup table. So in this case, I'll get the answer 61. If I copy it down and copy to the right, I'll get the right answers, irrespective that the Adam Gilchrist has leading spaces before the name starts, and Brian Lara has spaces, additional spaces in the middle between the first and the second name. So there you can apply the trim function on the student name. But what if in the second example, what if there are spaces in the lookup value? Let's say in the lookup table there are spaces here, spaces, and in the case you can see different spaces are there, trailing and leading spaces in the table itself. So in this case, we can apply the trim function on the entire table. Let's see how it's done. So we do a vlookup, we go to Imran Khan, we log column number, and when we apply the trim function, we apply the trim function to the whole table. We go to this and we select the entire table. And when we select the entire table, and we select this, when we select the entire table, we have to lock it up by pressing F4 key, and then in this entire table, I am going to look up my column using the match function in this range, exact match, and exact match for vlookup. If I just press enter, I'll get an error because I have applied the trim function on the entire table. It converts the table, the formula, into an array. So we have already applied trim function to the entire table. That's why we cannot just simply press enter on this. This has become an array formula, so we have to use Control Shift and then press enter. So in this case, we get a 61. Let's check the answer. Imran Khan 61 in the maths, but you can see that the number is on the aligned to the left side of the cell, which means that it is being treated, it is being shown as a text value. So in order to convert this text value into a number, a very simple trick is to add a 0 to it, or rather add a 0 to it and press Control Shift enter. So you get a number value. So we're going to copy it down and copy across, and we have the right numbers. The last example is when there are trailing and leading spaces in both the lookup values as well as the lookup table. So what are we going to do that over there? So I'm going to just copy the formula here from top, and I'm going to change certain things here. I'm going to refer to this lookup value, and I'm going to trim it over here like in the first case, and then I've applied the trim function on this table, and then the table is and now we are going to apply Control Shift enter. So you can see, even if there are spaces in both the lookup value and the table, we can use trim function twice, once on the lookup value and then on the table to get our required answer. In the next example, we are going to, this is an advanced example of vlookup. What we are going to do is, we are going to use vlookup to get all the matching records of the lookup condition. In this case, I have a table. Let's resize the columns. I have a table here, and the table has customers and the city and the contact numbers. One customer has presence in 2 or more cities. So what we are going to do is we are going to have the records of all the customers and in this table. So first, second, third, fourth entry of alpha is going to come here, Bravo, and so on. So alpha has got two entries in this table. So we want both these 2 entries over here. So for this purpose, we are going to make use of a helper column and another function called COUNTIF. So let's create a helper column here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all count the occurrences of customer alpha in the entire range of cells. For this purpose, I'm going to use a formula called COUNTIF. For COUNTIF, I have to give a range and then the criteria. But I don't want, if I give the entire range of cells and then the criteria of current cell alpha, it will give me in the total in the entire range, the alpha is coming twice. But I don't want this. I want a slight modification of this formula. What I want to do is, as I go down from the first row to the next row to the third row, I then find, and I need to find the occurrences of my current lookup value in the range above. For this reason, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log J8, and I'm going to use J8 again to create a range of let me log it properly, to create a variable range. In this case, you can see that the current range is only one cell alpha, so alpha is only appearing once. As I copy it down, this is the second occurrence of alpha, and similarly if we copy it downwards, each occurrences of the lookup value will show in the helper column. So let's say for echo, this is the first occurrence, second, third, and fourth occurrences. For this, we have used the COUNTIF function. Now, in addition to COUNTIF function, I'm going to combine the customers as well as their occurrences. For this purpose, I'm going to use an ampersand. I will select the cell J8 and I will combine it using an ampersand sign, and let's add a delimiter, in this case pipe, and then again ampersand and then COUNTIF. So we have this. If I copy downwards, what we have is alpha 1, alpha 2, Bravo 1, Bravo 2, Bravo 3. So we have joined the text with their occurrences. Now we can use this in this range of cells and with the vlookup. The way vlookup is going to be applied is vlookup, and since we have in the helper column is the first column of will become the first column of my table. So we have alpha, delimiter, and then occurrence. So what we can do is we can create a simple similar lookup value like alpha and pipe and the occurrence coming in the column A10. I'm going to log A10, the column A, and in case of B9, I'm going to log the row number 9. So in this case, if I join them together, I will see I get alpha pipe 1, which is fine. The next is my column, my table, which will start from this helper column all the way to the last column. I will log this, and I will take the fourth column to get the contact addresses, contact details, and I will look for an exact match. If I press enter, I get the first one. If I copy it downwards, I get the 2 entries for alpha, but the other 2 entries are returning an error because there is no third and fourth entry. And if I copy to the right, I get all the entries for all these customers. In order to handle the errors, we can just use an if error function, and we can replace the error values with a null or a empty string. We change it and press Ctrl Enter. So there you go. We have all the occurrences of alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo in the lookup table using the vlookup and COUNTIF function. Moving on to the next example, V8, vlookup 8. Now this is very interesting. Like for example, we have a customer age and contact details. So we are making a survey and we want to highlight some customers or get some customers above or below a certain age. Then how are we going to do that? For example, in the first case, what I want to do is I want to find out the last entry in my lookup table. My last entry is 68 and the contact detail is this. So how can I find the last entry in my lookup table? So for this purpose, we are going to use vlookup, and for vlookup, we don't have anything to look up. We don't know what the last entry is, but we know that the way the approximate match of the vlookup works, it goes step by step and it goes up to the very high or to the last level of the values. So we are going to put in a very large number, let's say 1000. We don't have any person who has age is 1000, so we put an arbitrary figure of 1000 and we're going to look up this 1000 in this range of cells. I'm going to lock it, and in this case I'm going to return a value from the second column, the contact details, or rather we can get the range from first column, the age. And in this case we are going to use an approximate match. If we are going to use an exact match, it will return an error because there is no one with a 1000 years of age. So we're going to use an approximate match, and if you press enter, we get the last entry being the age of 68. This may not be the highest or the most aged person in the range. It is just the last entry, the last cell coming in the entire range of cells. How does Excel works here? Excel works again the same way. Excel asks whether this 1000 is greater than this 55. Yes, it goes to the next level. Yes, goes to the next level. Yes. And the last is asked the same question. Is 1000 greater than 68? The answer is yes. It tries to go up or to the next level. It cannot find anything, so it goes back to the previous level and returns its value. So this is how vlookup works, and we can very easily get the maximum or the last value of a range of cells. In this case, the next example we have, we want to find out the customer age, the maximum age, and the contact number of that person. So in this case, let's say we say vlookup, and again we do the same thing. In this case, we don't want the last entry, we want exactly the maximum age of the person. For this purpose, we are going to use the formula max, and we are going to use the max of this range. When we give the entire range of cells, the Excel will look up the maximum value of the entire range of cells and will return a value. And in this case, the value will be if ExFF9 is 71, 71 is coming up here. Okay, and then based on this lookup value, Excel will look up the entire table, and it will return the customer age from column 1. In this case, we are going to use the exact match, 71 age, which is fine. And in this case, I'm going to just change it to column number 2, the contact details of the person having the maximum age. And in this case, for example, if it's a typo error, let's correct this here, minimum age. So in this case, we want to find out the minimum age of the person, the same range of cells. Again, we are going to use the same formula. We are just going to change the maximum function into a minimum function, and it will do the rest. So you can see the minimum age of a person in this range of cell is 33, and this contact details is this. So we can use a minimum and maximum function along with vlookup to get our required answer. Moving on to the next example, vlookup 9. This example is going to be an advanced example of vlookup application. What we have here is we have 3 regions, Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, and we have got 4 different products in each region, and we have prices of these products. So what we're going to do is we have to see multiple lookups. We have to look up both product and the region to get the price, and we can use 4 different methods to get the same result. So let's discuss one by one. In the first case, I'm going to use the choose method. The choose method is simply, the choose function simply returns a range of cells or a number or a value based on the index number. For example, if I give index number 1 and I select A, B, C. If I give 3 text values A, B, C, and if I give index number is 1, it will select A. If I select 3, it will select C. So it simply selects based on the index number that is given to the choose function. But there are certain variations to it. Let's see how it can be done here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find out, first of all, the region. The region is Karachi. The region is Karachi, and in Karachi we have to first of all select the region. So we will select region. We will call this table as first region, second region, and the third region, and then we are going to use choose function to select the relevant table. So for this purpose, I can let's say 1, and in this case I will select this range of cell. For example, this is the first range of cell. I will lock it, and the second range of cells, lock it, and then the third range of cells, lock it, bracket close. If I press enter, the answer is okay, an error, because Excel cannot show the entire range of cells in a single cell. But if I select the range of cells and press F9, it gives me the table in the memory. And iPhone 5, price 127, this is the first range. What if I make it a 2 here? What will happen? It will return the second range. And similarly, when I make it 3, it will return the third range. So first, how are we going to change the ranges here? We can change the range based on the match function. We can match Karachi region in cell B89, for example. I will log the column number here, and I will look up this region over here and this range of cells, lock it up again, and exact match for match. In this case, if I select this match and press F9, I'll get 1. Okay, based on this entire range of cells has become a table for me. This formula has returned a table for me, and I can use a vlookup function. I will choose vlookup, and I will look up iPhone 5 in A9 in this entire grand table that we have just made using the choose function. I will use the column number 2, column 1, column 2. I will use column number 2 to get the price and exact match. So here, there you go. In Karachi, the price of iPhone 5 is 127. If I copy the formula down, iPhone 7 in Lahore, iPhone 7 in Lahore is 428. There you go. Now moving on to the next example, we have to calculate the price of each product using the offset formula along with the vlookup. So in order to do this, we have to first understand what offset formula does. Let's see. Offset has got 3 arguments and 3 main arguments and 2 optional arguments. We have to start with a reference cell number. In this case, let me first give you an example. I want to put a reference cell number at this point, which is H8, which is the heading of the region. What I want to do is I would like to first calculate the applicable region based on the selection which is given in the column B. So for that purpose, I have taken region as the reference point, and in the offset, the next argument is number of rows. How many number of rows I have to go down from the reference point, and we will calculate this number of rows from the formula match. We'll use match, and we will look up this region in cell B9. I'm going to log this up, and we will look up this region in this range of cells from Karachi till Islamabad, and we will log this as well. And we are going to use an exact match for this lookup. So based on this selection, for example, if I just press F9 key, you will see that the Islamabad is appearing in the 11th row. So we can see over here from top, the 11th row is Islamabad here, and Control Z. And once the reference point is shifted from this place to this place in the 11th row, what we need to do is we need to move to the right side of this range because our lookup values will be this region. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the next part of the argument and place 1 in it. 1 will move the reference point from Islamabad to iPhone 5. And next point is to select the number of cells vertically, number of rows to select. I would like to select 4 rows and 2 columns so that I have this entire range of cells inside my formula. So for the purpose of calculating the number of rows, I would like to, again, instead of putting a hard-coded number, I would like to use a formula called COUNTIF, so that it exactly counts how many number of rows are there for this particular region. So I'm going to use COUNTIF, and I'm going to apply COUNTIF on the same range as the previous one. I will log this range and I will look up this Islamabad region again in this range to see how many number of rows are there in this range. So if I just select this portion and press F9 key, it will give me a 4, which is exactly the number of rows Islamabad has in this data. So if the number of rows are different for different regions, the COUNTIF formula will cater to that and will provide us the exact number of rows for each region. And finally, we have to provide the width, and in case of width, I have just 2 columns, 1 and 2. So I'm just going to put 2 manually here and will close the formula for offset. Right now the offset gives me a value error, but when I go into edit mode and I press F9 key, the entire table of Islamabad is appearing here. You can see iPhone 5 102, which is this, and the last one iPhone 8 677, which is this. So this portion, 8 cells are in this table in the memory. Now we press Ctrl Z and we will now use vlookup function to find out our respective value. vlookup, I now have to look up iPhone 5, which is in cell A9. I will lock this up. I will lock the column number, and at the end I will just select the column index number, which is 2 here, because this will be my first column and this will be my column number 2 from which I want to get my answer. And finally I'm going to go for an exact match. That's why I selected false here and bracket close, and there you go, the same answer. If we copy the formula down, we will get the same answers as the formula with choose. Okay, now with respect to the formula with another formula called indirect, we are going to use vlookup along with indirect to get the answer. For indirect, first I would like to have give range name to each of the regions. I would like to call this particular range of cells as Karachi region. So the direct way of naming a range of cell is to just select the range and type it in the name box. I'm going to call it Karachi. The next range of cells is Lahore, and the third range of cells is Islamabad. Once I have given the names of the ranges, I will use these in the formula indirect. What indirect does is indirect just takes a reference from a text and see whether any reference to that text in the cell is available or not. For example, if I refer indirect and I go to cell B9, the formula will check whether any reference to this text Islamabad is available. For example, in this case, if I just press enter, the answer is an error, but if I press F9, you will see the entire table which I've referred to Islamabad is appearing in the cell. Similarly, if I make it let's say Karachi, the indirect will return the table for Karachi. Let's say iPhone 5 127 is here, 602 is here. So we will use this as the table for vlookup. I'm going to combine this with vlookup A9, and I will log this column, and the column, the formula, the table will come from the indirect function, and in this table we will use the column number 2, the index column, to get the price, and we are going to use the exact match. So if we get this, we get the same answer, and copy it down. You can see it's a very small formula, but this depends on the use of the range names. Finally, we move to the last example of vlookup with index. So we are going to try to get the same result as before using the index formula. Index formula, first of all I'm going to apply index, and later on I will combine it with vlookup. So index has two applications and two syntaxes, and we are going to use the second one here. For this we have to mention the reference, and then these are row number, column number, and so on. So for this purpose I am going to put my references inside of a bracket. My first reference is the range of cells. Reference means the range of cells that we are going to refer to, since we have multiple arrays. So my first array is the Karachi region. Since I've already given names when I was using indirect, I can just type in, let's say, Karachi, and then my next region is Lahore, and my third region is Islamabad. So I have given this range names also as arrays in this reference area. And then I have to specify the row number. In case of row number, I want to make sure that the entire column is selected instead of a single row. We are going to use a 0 to select the entire number of rows. And whereas for number of columns, we have two columns here. Again, we want to select both the columns in our range of cells. So instead of mentioning either 1 or 2, we are going to use a 0 again to select the entire range of cells. And finally, we have to specify the area number. Our area numbers are Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, and we have to specify which area are we talking about. So in case we have in this particular line, we have Karachi region. So I'm going to use a match function on Karachi in this range of cells that I've already created over here, Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. I will log this up and I use an exact match, and this will give me the exact range area number. In this case it's 1 when I have Karachi in place. When I will select Lahore, it will be 2, and Islamabad will be 3. So if I close the bracket, I will get a value error, but again if I go to edit mode and press F9, I have the Karachi region in my formula. Escape, and if I change it to say Lahore and try this again, I will have the range for Lahore region. In this case, you can see if iPhone 5 136 is in the Lahore region. So now we are going to use this range of cells similar to the way we have used before, vlookup, and I'm going to look up cell A9 here. I will log the column, and finally I will go to select the type in the column index number, which is 2 here, and finally exact match is 0. Now I've got the same answer. Double click to copy it down. So in this case, we have used 4 different formulas to look up values when there are more than 1 arrays of data, and you can choose whichever suits you best. Moving on to the next example, we have vlookup example number 10. In this case, we have lookup values based on multiple criteria. We have the product names which are repeated here, A, B, C, and D, and this is being repeated multiple times. And the quantity sold is here also, but the quantity sold is also appearing multiple times. There are certain duplicates. For example, B13. B13 is coming over here in row number 15 and this date of 29th of January, and B13 is also appearing on 2nd of February. What I want to do is I would like to have the date of the latest sale which matches this criteria. So I want to find out I would like to get the answer of 2nd February in this range of cells. So for this purpose, we will have to use a vlookup formula, but in combination with other formulas. I'm going to do a step-by-step calculation. Let's see. First of all, I'm going to add a column here, and this will be a helper column. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the product and quantity together. For this purpose, I will use the concat function on product, and I will use a delimiter pipe, and then I will join it with the quantity sold. I will copy it down, and I will also copy the same formula in this cell. Furthermore, I will also add one more column as a helper column, and I will add a formula called rows. Rows formula count the number of rows in a given range of cells. So in this case, I will select, for example, E10 to E10. E10 to E10, which means one row is selected, but in this case, I'm going to log the row number of the first cell. And when I copy it downwards, it will become a variable range. And when I move to the next cell, it becomes E10 to E11, the third cell E10 to E12, and so on. So now I'm going to apply my formula and see wherever the combination of B13 is there and the latest value, latest date for the cells. For this purpose, first of all, I will use an exact formula. Exact does exactly what it says. Exact is basically compare two text values and says whether they are exactly the same or not. So I'm going to compare C28 with a range of cells here, and I will log this cell. And since I'm comparing one cell with multiple cells, this is an array formula. If I just press enter, it will give me an error. But when I select it and press F9, it gives me a bunch of falses and trues. So you can see that there is a true here and there is a true here. So there are two matches for which it gives me a true. Everything else is a false. So we cannot use the trues and false directly in the formula. What we are going to do is we are going to convert them into numbers. So I'm going to multiply the trues and falses with the number of rows that we have just created. I will log this up again, and when I press enter, again there's an error, but now we can see we have all the falses are converted into zeros and all the trues are relatively multiplied with their row numbers. Like B13 is multiplied, the true, which is 1, multiplied with 6 to get a 6 here. Similarly, 10 multiplied by 1 gives me a 10 here. What I'm going to do, since I want to get the latest sale date, so I will use a max formula on this result, and I'll get the maximum value here. The maximum value in this case is 10, which is this sale of 2nd February. And when I have the number available, I will apply the vlookup formula. I will look up this value 10 in the range this. I will log this up and I will look in the second column an exact match to get my answer, which is a value error. But when I press Ctrl Shift Enter, because it's an array formula, I get 2nd February, which is my answer here. Let's check it out if I can change the selection and get a different result. For example, we have A10 here, which is 28th of January, and I have A10 again on 5th of February. So let's check, make it A and make it 10. So we have 5th of February, which is this thing. So this is the final answer we have for the latest sale from this bunch of cells. Now moving on to the last example of this video, vlookup 11. In vlookup 11, we have I would like to show you how we can do a reverse lookup. You know that vlookup has an inherent problem or limitation that it can only look up to the right of its side. For example, in this case, I have products in the first column of this array, quantity and date in the second and third column. But if I want to look up dates using a vlookup formula, I cannot go to the left of the lookup values in the table. I can go only to the right. But there is a workaround in which we can go from instead of left to right, we can go from right to left. Let's see how it's done. We are going to use a choose function in addition to vlookup to create a temporary table, just like we have done before in the series, and we are going to use then vlookup to get a required answer. In this case, I am going to use a choose function first and show you how temporary table is created. We have 3 columns here: product and quantity sold and date. So we are going to have date in the first column, which is basically a third column right now. So I'm going to start with 3, and in 3, and then I have quantity sold as a second column, and then the product will be my first column, which will be in the third column of my new table. So, and then I will select this product, the first range. I will log this up, comma, second range, log this up again, and the third range. So what I'm basically telling Excel is that this is my first, my second, my third range. The choose function is bringing the third in the first place, second in the second place, and the first range in the third place. If I close the bracket and enter, it's an error. But if I select it and press F9 key, you can see, if I just go down, so you can see that the date, which is in the format of a number right now, and the quantity is appearing here, and finally the product is appearing on the third column. So in this case we have a right approach, a right sequence of columns in my formula. We can use a vlookup here, and we can combine a vlookup, and we can look up this date in cell A28. I'm going to log this cell, and we're going to apply choose over here, and in the last we can select the column number 2 for the quantity sold, and exact match for the vlookup. We get a value of 13, which is against 3rd of February. I can check against 3rd of February my sale of C product C is 13 units. So 13 units are coming over here, and now I want to have the product name over here. So if I copy this formula here and change this column index number to 3, it will give me the product C, which is exactly the case on 3rd of February. 13 units of product C is sold. So in this case, what we have done is we have changed the sequence of the columns in my original table, and have reversed or flipped the column sequence, and then applied vlookup on that, so that we can look towards the left of the lookup values rather than the traditional approach of the looking up on the right side. So these are the 11 examples of vlookup that I've shared with you in these 2 videos, covering from basic concepts to advanced concepts, including array formulas. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next video.